Hey there everybody, in this video I'm going to share with you guys my live streaming setup from its most simple form to its most complex. I'm going to add each element along the way so you can see what different things do to improve your live stream. My name is Russ and welcome to Let's Make Internets, and this is where I give you practical tips for the working class YouTuber. So let's get started. So this right now is probably the most basic setup I would use, and it's simply my laptop, a MacBook Pro, and I am using an earbud with a microphone. This is kind of standard protocol to get better audio on your live stream. So if nothing else, you should at least do this. On this particular setup, I also have a Logitech webcam that I've attached to the top of the laptop. So that kind of helps improve image quality a little bit. Not a vast leap from the built-in camera on the MacBook, but a slight improvement. So this is my most basic setup where I get at least good audio and slightly better video. So let's move on to the next setup. So this is the next level up from just using that very basic setup. I am now feeding my mirrorless camera into the computer via HDMI and video encoder. In this case, the Elgato Camlink. The audio is still coming from these wireless earbuds, so I can listen to who I'm talking to as well as get a little bit clearer audio. So this setup, there is a big jump in image quality and no jump in audio quality. We're going to change that in a bit. I'm going to add a little bit of complexity to the system and use a wireless lavalier so you can hear how that sounds like. So let's do that now. So I've changed to the lavalier mic and hopefully you can hear an improvement in audio. So again, I'm no longer relying on the microphone on the earbuds, but rather on this guy here. And this is transmitting an audio signal from myself to the camera wirelessly, and the video and the audio from the camera are arriving to the computer via HDMI on the Camlink. So this is kind of an important detail because yes, you could use a mic and plug it directly into your computer. But if you do that, since audio travels faster than video, there's going to be a slight delay. And unless you're using software that can account for that delay, it's a little bit disconcerting. So where I can, I always try to plug the audio into the camera and send it together via HDMI into the computer. So I feel like this setup is probably the best setup for most people. You get better quality audio than just an earbud, and you get better image quality than your typical webcam. You do still contend with having earbuds in the shot, and you want to do this just so your guest's voice isn't picked up by the microphone and creates this big feedback loop. Visually, not the best, but there are some really cheap solutions. I'm going to link to some earbuds in the description below that actually route behind your ears so it's hidden. So now we're going to make things a little bit more complicated. The camera is going to stay the same, but we're going to up the quality of the mic and use a condenser mic and a mixer. And you'll be able to hear the improvement with this setup. So let's do that now. Okay, so this is the next big leap, and this time the improvement is in the audio. So I've switched from a wireless lavalier to a condenser mic. This is the Audio-Technica 2035, and it's held in place by the Rode PSA arm, and that runs via XLR cable into this guy, which is the Zoom H5. So this is actually a field recorder that I'm repurposing into an audio interface for the camera. What it's doing is it's providing phantom power to the mic, so it powers it with its preamps, and then it feeds that audio signal straight into the camera. And again, both the audio and the video arrive to the stream at the same time because it's all traveling via HDMI. This is a pretty good stopgap solution from going to a full-on mixer, but it does have its quirks. One of them is mostly power. You can either run it off of some AA batteries, or in this case, I'm using a big USB power pack to keep it powered. They don't have a wall mount for this guy, which is a bit of a bummer, so you do have to rely on some battery source. Another kind of downside to the H5 is that it doesn't really have any EQ, and you can't really route audio from a guest back into it. So a great solution if you're going to do a single person live stream where you're not going to have another guest. You could actually have two people in the same room because this does have two XLR ports, and I have used it like that in the past. But if you plan on doing a video podcast or a live stream with more than, let's say, two people in the same room and you want to bring in a remote guest, then this really starts to show some of its issues. Okay, so let's move on to the next audio solution after this. So in this setup, we've leveled up the audio once again. I'm running the microphone through the Rodecaster Pro and sending it to the camera wirelessly using these Rode wireless Go's. One of the big advantages of this setup is that it has EQ, it has some effects, so it really gives you that podcaster slash radio sound, if you will. It also has a lot of input, so you can have multiple guests on at the same time. And you also have access to jingles on the soundboard, so you could play music or different sound effects And you can just add all sorts of little small tweaks and production value to your live stream. Another big advantage of this setup is that it does come with an AC outlet, so you can run it via the wall and don't have to worry about feeding batteries to it. But there are some downsides. I covered it in a previous video where I talked about this ground loop effect, where when I fed the audio directly to the camera, there was a hum and a buzz because there was some ground loop going on somewhere. And I found that by sending the audio wirelessly to the camera, it gets rid of the ground loop hum. It's not ideal because these are battery powered, and you have to watch them so they don't die in the middle of a live stream. So I'm still working on a better solution, but for now I have found this to be the best kind of stopgap solution. With this setup, you also can record simultaneously. So if you're going to do a live stream and want to take the MP3 file off this unit and upload it to whatever podcasting service you have, you can do that pretty quickly. This also has the ability to record in multi-channel, so you can really fine-tune the levels between guests, as well as feeding audio from a remote guest via USB. So pretty awesome. Admittedly, overkill for most people, but if you do plan to do live streams and podcasts in your future productions, then this is a pretty good piece of kit to invest in. Okay, so we've been upgrading the audio continuously. Now it's time to tweak things on the video end. So this is where things get a little bit more complicated. So let's do that now. Okay, so we've added another level of complexity, and this time it's on the video side, and I have put a A10 Mini Pro into the mix. And what this allows me to do is switch camera angles. So if I'm doing a tutorial where I want a wide shot and maybe something close, like a detail of something, then I can do that on the fly with this. Beyond camera angles, I can also bring in video feeds and graphics. So let's say you're doing a presentation and you want to run a short film, you can cut to that computer source and play that video. Or in my case, if I were going to do a product review of some sort and I shot some B-roll using it out in the world, I can cut to that just by hitting the button. A pretty powerful tool. The A10 Mini Pro has 4 inputs. You can have up to 4 cameras, or say 2 cameras and a presentation laptop and some other source. So a lot of expandability. And one thing I like about it is that it does a lot of the hard video encoding work. And to do something equivalent, you would need 4 of these Elgato cam links. And price-wise, they would be pretty close. It's almost more cost effective to get one of these than to get 4 individual little video encoder cards. Okay, so we've upped the audio game, we've upped the video game. What is next? The final piece is lighting. Up until now, I've been using just available light. I'm pretty lucky that in our living room here, there's a big window that kind of light the whole scene. But sometimes I do live streams at night, or the light's constantly shifting and I want more control, so that's when I bring in lighting. So let's see what that looks like. So this is my live streaming setup at its most complex. We've got all the audio sweetening with the mic and the mixer. We've got some pretty cool tools to increase video production value. We can switch to a second cam here or bring in another feed. So as you can see, this is a full-on studio in our apartment. The last bit was to improve the lighting. I did a couple of tweaks. I'm using 2 lights. One is this Falcon Eyes softbox, and it's got a grid, so the light is a little bit more directional. And behind me, I have an older LED light that I just put a blue gel on. You'll notice in this angle that everything seems really, really blue, even though I don't have blue lights all over the place. So what I did was I employed an old trick I used to do when I do a lot of portrait photography outside, is I purposely chose the wrong white balance. So the in-camera white balance is set to tungsten. So all the daylight that was coming in through the natural light is now blue. And that also helps accentuate the blue LED behind me. And this main light is actually set to tungsten setting, so that should read, the correct white balance. So again, just to make that really simple, the camera's white balance setting is set to tungsten, so all daylight is blue, and the softbox here is set to a tungsten color temperature, so that is why it's not super orange, but it reads correctly. And this way, you get this kind of nice balance between warm and cool. And again, in this camera angle, you can see how blue everything is, even though I don't have blue lights all around me. So this is a cool way to add some separation, add some production value to your video just by playing with the white balance. Okay, so do you need to do all these things to have a successful live stream? Of course not. However, I do think it makes sense to invest in some live streaming technologies. I mean, the world has changed, the way that people interact has changed expectations for online video is rapidly changing and you want to get ahead of the curve. So that's why I've made this investment. And in future videos, I'm going to break down the specific quirks and positives and negatives of all these. So if you're into that kind of content, hit the subscribe button and go out there and make some internets.